Okay.
But I always have cash at the house. That has been, I don't know, all my life. If you're a woman and you go on a date with a man, you better have $200 in your pocket. So if that man acts up, you can go where you want to go. So I keep cash in my house, and I don't keep cash as good in my purse like I used to, 'cause I don't go on many dates. But when you go on a date, you should have cash in your pocket.
So my question was, where did that cash originally come from? If it didn't come out of the bank?
Cash is fungible. I've had cash for years in my house. So for me to tell you the source of when it comes from, when you go to Publix and you buy something, you get $50, you throw it in there. It's been my whole life. When I took out a large amount of money on my first campaign, I kept some of the cash of that. Like, to tell you, I just have cash in my house. I don't have as much today as I would normally have, but I'm building back up now. So you just put money in. It's a very good practice. I would advise it to all women.
So you can't identify when you came into this cash or where the cash came from?
I didn't say I couldn't identify it. No, nobody gives me anything. I am sure that the source of the money is always the work, sweat, and tears of me.
Oh, the work, sweat, and tears.
Baby.
The tears, baby.
Tears.
Yeah. Tough being a hooker, isn't it? Tough being working the street. But if she said the word cash one more time, Hanley, I think I was going to go back to drug dealing again.
Oh, well, hey, she had to be inspired to come up with RICO charges. Confession through projection?
You couldn't get any more confession through projection from this goddamn testimony with the backwards dress lady. Who the hell knows what she's wearing? At one point, her American flag pin was completely upside down. I don't know if you noticed that. She had moved around so much that her American flag pin was upside down, which I got a kick out of.
Oh, that's when she was getting flustered. But I did change my mind. I had forgotten who her father was.
Oh,
and
how
remember,
could you forget that?
No, short memory span. But remember, she kept saying over and over, my father said, you keep cash. My father said, you keep cash. And then I remembered who he was. And I was like, he probably did say you keep a bunch of cash.
That's right.
The business that guy was in.
Well, how about even to this day? I just want to refresh the testimony, even from this morning, by the Black Panther father, who is from L.A., by the way. He's not from the backwoods of Georgia, despite this hillbilly family and everybody else who testified in this Dukes of Hazzard freaking case. The guy's from L.A. He's a Black Panther from L.A. But in his testimony, and she bore this out, he calls her or speaks to her 10 times a day. They both said this. Who the hell speaks to a parent 10 times a day? I have never heard this. It's completely insane. He says, I speak to my daughter at least 10 times a day.
Maybe Hunter. No,
maybe Hunter. I mean, Hunter's too freaking high to even find his cell phone, for Christ's sake. I mean, what is with this family? I mean, this is the craziest family of all time. First of all, the other guy, Nathan Wade, was just sweating his bald-headed balls off on the stand yesterday. He just kept wiping the sweat off his brow as the thing went on hour after hour after hour,
Flop
which is
sweat.
why. What's that?
Pure flop sweat.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Which is why I've always said getting these people under oath, under the lights, is what breaks them. And it could be congressional lights, courthouse lights, whatever it is. If you see people like the Trump kids who testified, they didn't break a sweat. None of these people who are righteous individuals ever breaks a sweat on the stand. It's always these crooks and criminals who crack under the bright lights and being under oath. And as demonstrated by her, completely defensive psychopath.
Oh, well, I mean, even with a supportive judge, and sorry, that judge was protecting her.
Was protecting himself because at the end of the day, she could indict him once this thing is over.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's very incestuous in that area. So he used to work for her.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because it was a perfect study for whoever is interested in statement analysis. Just watch her that entire time. She would never answer a question directly. She would always filibuster no matter what happened. And she would say stupid shit like they would say, was Nathan ever in your house? He was never in the Fulton house. That's not what we asked. Let me rephrase that. Was he ever where you laid your head?
Mm-hmm.
He was never in the Fulton house. And it was just on.
I was surprised that the attorney allowed her to ramble on uninterrupted instead of saying, just answer the question, ma'am, just answer the question. She just let her, I guess, bury herself or whatever her intent was. There had to be some intent to this because even Viva was losing his mind, yelling, please just interrupt her already and say, answer the question, yes or no, which she didn't do.
Hold on. The theory is because I was with the lawyers earlier, and they were saying that, okay, first off, that lawyer is the one who discovered all this stuff and put it forward. But then her job, they think they coordinated it. Her job was to kind of let her run her course and go on and on. And then the second one was the cleanup hitter. Yeah. Because Fannie Willis doesn't respect women in any way. And then when the male got involved, he brought her straight. Remember, she was like, please don't yell at me, sir. It was, Trump's lawyer went nailing. Now that first
don't you go be emasculating a black male, lady. I mean, because that's why they're there, obviously to emasculate a black male. The whole point of this, the whole point of the case. How about the former governor showing up? That guy this morning.
That was a character. You want to talk
about that guy was right out of the Dukes of Hazzard. I mean, what the dude? I was waiting for the sheriff to come in next and say Billy Bob is here. Holy crap! The guy didn't have a belt for his pants. He had about 15 pens in his pocket. I don't know if you saw what was going on with this guy's attire. He had the crazy floppy hat he was carrying. I thought he was going to show up with a walking stick, like Walking Tall or something. Holy crap! Let me tell you something. For all their sophistication. And all this, everybody's the same, assimilation, everything else. Georgia is still a backwoods hillbilly state. Okay. I don't know how far you want to go with this story, but the reality of it is the story about the takeovers of the homes is where we left off last week. If you remember, in Atlanta, Eric, talking about Georgia, the fact that they had taken over as squatters. Remember, this story is a follow-up to Eric and my story from last week about the squatters of something like 16 or 1,500 homes in the Atlanta suburbs in Georgia. And you could see one of the homes in the corner. These are not mom and pop cottages. These are $500,000 to $2 million homes, $500,000 to $2 million homes. This guy here, this is an update on the story. This guy is a handyman who's in charge of a handyman's lobby, actually out of California. He has set up a squatter unit, a website to get squatters to reclaim your property nationally, Eric. Nice. And he has set up a squatter's website, squatter busting website to get rid of the squatters who are in your home nationally. And he's based in California, and it happened to him, which is how it got started. His mother died, and he came to the house, and there were squatters in there, and he's now created a squatter removal service. But the point of the matter is there are no laws against it. He's starting to lobby to get laws against squatting in these homes. And it has hit Atlanta, and it hit Georgia, where she is the DA in Fulton County. They've taken over something like 1,600 homes that they've turned into nightclubs and everything else, these black gangs. And you say, well, why do you mention that? Well, I'm mentioning it for a reason. There was an author named Fletcher Nebel back in the day who was a journalist for the Washington Post. Fletcher Nebel wrote a book, 7 Days of May, that JFK really loved. And he allowed them to shoot the movie in the White House, 7 Days in May, and he had read it in galley form, JFK, and he said, this could happen to me if I have another couple of Bay of Pigs under my belt. He actually said that to his aides. The thing I'm getting at is another book written by Fletcher Neville, who's one of my favorite political science authors. I got into this subject when I was a kid, political science fiction. And Fletcher Neville is the king of political science fiction. And that is political science combined with fiction, not political science fiction. And it's a genre I made up on my own. I don't know if anybody's ever copied it, but Fletcher Neville was the top guy in this field. There's other guys who've done it, but Fletcher Neville, being a reporter for the Washington Post, he came up with another book. And that book is a little bit more obscure, called Trespass. And Trespass was a book about Black nationalist groups taking over homes in the South and taking them by force with a group called the Blacks of February 21st. And they took over these homes and forged copies of the leases or got the owners to sign leases over to them at gunpoint. And they took over these homes of the biggest estates in the South, and they formed a nation called Gamal, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana, and they seceded from the United States. And I know this novel has been read by the people in Fulton County, because what's going on down there with the squatters is taking this book and putting it into action. You heard that here first, folks. Look up the book Trespass by Fletcher Neville, and you'll see what's going on in the South by seizing these homes. They are copying the premise of the book, and they're going to fight legally to the death to keep those estates. Mark my words. I just wanted to get that out there.
Good Lord. I see things like that, and I just cannot understand how it can go about. I mean, some of it seems to be such common sense.
Except nobody will enforce the law. The police are saying it's a civil matter. The civil people, the courts, of which she is involved in both, are hands off. This again goes back to Fannie Willis. She will not prosecute these 1,800 to 1,500 homes that have been seized by Black gangs, Black insurrectionists, as she would call them, who are claiming the right to these homes. Now, people are literally going on vacation and coming back and finding their homes taken. And one woman went overseas to it was in the military, came back and her home was taken. They tried to get him back. They can't. This is not a couple of squatters who are homeless. This is an organized militant campaign to seize these homes so far in the South. It's happened here in LA too, in Beverly Hills, but it's not the same operation that you have going on in the Deep South.
Well, hold on though. It's not all the Deep South. You're talking about Atlanta. I'm very curious. Is it going to happen in Savannah? I don't know, because not everybody is the same when it comes to the city. You know, Atlanta's a very blue city. LA is a very blue city.
Again, these are the suburbs. These are the suburbs outside. These are the wealthiest neighborhoods in the suburbs. Sure. These people who live in those neighborhoods are afraid to go to Walmart and leave their homes open for a couple of hours. They are living in total fear. They've canceled their vacations. They canceled visiting their sons in college. They will not leave their homes out of fear of them being seized by gang elements out of Atlanta. You could read into it what you want, Eric, but so far it's over 1,300 homes have been seized, and it's not on the national news. It's not being reported anywhere. This is not 3 homes. This is 1,300 estates. You're talking about a mass insurrection seizure of private property, which brings us back to the ruling by the judge today in the Trump case. Or we can go another direction on it, because the same reason that so much of this is not being enforced is because of a certain funding by an individual whose son has a new right. Okay. So this is the deep state marrying off like the like the arranged marriages of the 1800s in Europe. This is the deep state pairing up a couple so they could do their bidding going into the next 30 to 40 years, maybe 80 years if it's a Soros. Yeah, I mean, you talk about strange bedfellows. I mean, wow, this Abedin is really deep. I mean, she was dating Bradley Cooper for a couple of minutes, and I think Bradley Cooper has gone completely deep state, by the way. But now she's switched over to a much, much bigger elephant, and that's the son of George Soros. That's bigger than Bradley Cooper. So.
Oh yeah, she's gone from a scumbag to a supervillain.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I mean, Cooper is a likable guy. I mean, he's kind of replaced Tom Hanks as the deep state actor to go to. I mean, Tom Hanks is was chosen for a reason. It's because of his likability. And Bradley Cooper is a Tom Hanksian type actor in terms of people who like him in town here.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I find that completely disturbing. Yeah, and we can switch right back to Trump. Well, I mean, they're all kind of they're bouncing back and forth, but yeah.
Okay. This just came out, like Eric is pointing out. This was just announced. So.
Yeah, $355 million. So hold on now. Let's get this straight. $355 million for, quote, defamation for supposedly something he said, which in fact is true because the jury themselves, they filled out a form and they said, did this happen? No. So it is a completely made up verdict in every way.
Well, there's more to it. It's really my take on it is a little bit more broad than this. The reason the legal pieces don't fit together, the reason is a $4 million charge against Eric. There's a $4 million charge against Don Jr. There's the rest of it is in Trump's court. That his license has been revoked. His businesses are now being seized. They're going to go to conservatorships of all of his businesses. What they have done is a Marxist takeover of a private business of the largest scale ever imagined in the history of the United States. You heard it here first, folks. This is what they did here. That's why the judge could not complete the jigsaw puzzle of legal pieces to make it make sense, because it has no legal sense. The reason the pieces don't fit is because this is a Marxist takeover of private property. The money and the private property and the licensing and the penalties are all designed to show you that the state is now going to move against private capitalists across the country. This is the test case on how to take down one of the biggest fish. Forget about the president, political, whatever it is. Just from a capitalist Marxist point of view, that's what I think this is. Does it have political overtones? Absolutely. Is it designed to injure him politically? Yes. But in a broader sense, what you're seeing now for the first time, and the reason that all these straight conservatives cannot figure this out, is because this is a Marxist takedown of one of the biggest capitalist builder industrialists in the United States. This was the way this is going to be done. The state is going to decide, without a victim, without a complaint, with a bank on their side, with no money lost, that we're going to seize the property of capitalist, industrialist builders and penalize them out of existence when we see fit, which is going to happen a lot faster once this gets past the appellate court review, in my humble opinion.
I have no doubt. And by the way, to dust this back off again. And we are demonetized.
Thank you. Anything you say on the channel is demonetized. Look, who cares? The people are going to support us because the people know what's right. As they said in Raging Bull, you don't get out of that ring. The people know who the champ is. You stay in that ring, as Joe Pesci said to Jake LaMotta. You just stay in that ring. The people know. Anyway, so they'll support us with super chats and whatever reasons they have for their own things. But look, this is what that case means to me. The one with the crazy judge who looks like he's at a Nosferatu.
Well, that and also the timing. Come on, you have, meanwhile, one person squirming on a Trump case.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree.
Let's make sure we get this verdict out today.
Right. I mean, the timing is gravy. But I mean, the bigger, broader picture, the reason the legal mumbo jumbo does not fit is because there is no legal mumbo jumbo that will fit. This is not about a legal case. As many court experts have indicated, the bank itself came in and said there was no victim here. The analysis of the real estate people as to the value of Mar-a-Lago came in and said this is actually what it's worth. The judge says, no, I think it's worth $5, because from a Marxist point of view, Eric, what is it worth? It's worth whatever they say it's worth. It doesn't matter what right. Everything about this case, this particular case, has Marxist takeovers fingerprints all over it. This particular case.
Everybody in the chat that's saying wrong case, I know it's a different case. My point is that they're coordinated. That one case is going bad for Fannie Willis. So
Oh, yeah.
another case, because they're coordinated, let's get a verdict today to pull the headlines off of the
Well,
other case. I mean, it's kind of obvious, folks. But there is one piece of good news that Trump did get, and SEC cleared his social media deal for $10 billion with Truth.
That's weird. That's a weird case.
So then he potentially can get some money out of that. I'm sure they'll be trying to take that, but it is a small bright spot.
Again, this is I think they're using Trump as an example on how they're going to take down capitalism. I think that's part of their plan, is to use him as an example. There are obviously the political ramifications of it, but I think there's other ramifications of it, and that is him being a capitalist, and they hate capitalism.
Yeah. They hate capitalism.
People are missing this point. That is obviously Marxist behind the scenes, behind the Biden administration. And what the reason, again, to stretch this out a little further, the reason you're seeing Biden's policies all over the map is because they're all fighting all over the map in the Oval Office behind him. They have competing interests. That's why you see him denouncing Israel one day, supporting Palestine the next day, then going to East Palestine to visit these blue-collar people, to come out with this Navalny murder, and I believe Navalny was murdered. The timing of it is impeccable. All they did was order a hit in prison. That's all they did, folks. Putin didn't wake up today and say, I'm going to give Biden a gift from heaven by killing Navalny, who had a 4-year sentence. This guy was whacked. This was an Epstein-style situation that happened in Moscow. You could take it to the bank.
Now, do you think Putin has his own deep state problem, or
no? I think he was whacked on orders from the West. I think they found a guy in prison to kill him, just like they did with Epstein. I don't have a problem with that at all.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, they got a guy in to whack Navalny. I mean, it would be the same as if Navalny killed himself. They killed him for him. And believe me, Putin did not wake up today and say, I have to kill this guy who's 900 points behind me in the polls, who's a crook. As Barnes has pointed out, if you want to hear about Navalny, go see what Robert Barnes has to say about him on a number of episodes.
All right, I haven't really followed the guy. I just saw the headlines. So I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about a guy dying in prison, I don't remember Biden coming out and having a press conference about a citizen from Burbank, California, named Gonzalo Lira dying in prison in Ukraine. I don't remember him talking about that at all. I might have missed that news day. Or the people that Tucker brought up, the Wall Street Journal spy that they do have in prison in Moscow. I didn't hear Biden mention that today either.
I'm sorry. I did get the wrong case. I mixed up E. Jean Carroll. So
no, I know. That's why I knew you were, but I didn't want to say anything. I just figured we'd keep going.
Okay. Well, I like to be, if I'm corrected, I'll stand corrected. So sorry.
No, it's cool. There's so many there's so many cases. How can anybody keep a lid on this thing?
Yeah, it makes my head hurt.
Now, what about the FBI informant? We were just talking about this before the show, who was arrested. Speaking of Russians, who was the guy who was the informant against the Biden crime family, the one who originally notified the FBI. He landed at Dulles, I think it was, and was immediately arrested and put into handcuffs by the FBI, of course, because that's what happens to whistleblowers in this banana republic these days. He is now in prison himself, incommunicado, in prison, where I assume something bad is going to happen to him.
Maybe. I've given up on that. I don't know. I mean, Kleinsmith worked with the FBI, and what happened? He got caught. He got convicted. He's back in practicing law. So
again, this guy was arrested, and the Biden said that he lied about his family, and he's now been arrested for lying, quote unquote, about the Biden crime family, and he is incarcerated for lying against the Biden family. This is the guy that was the original whistleblower.
Okay.
Right. Okay. He's the guy that the hearings are all about. This is what is this guy is now on ice, Eric. This guy is now in prison. The original whistleblower.
That figures. I missed the theme. I saw that somebody got arrested, but I had not picked.
Okay, well, to continue with that theme, I mean, the testimony by Bobulinski, the next 3 to 4 weeks is going to make or break this administration, because you have Tony Bobulinski's testimony over the next 3 or 4 days, started on Tuesday, I think. That's going to be 100 hours. Then you're bringing in some odd guy named James Biden, who's going to be under oath for 100 hours. And then the cherry on the cake is going to be Hunter Biden under oath in deposition format for 100 hours. These 3 witnesses are going to begin the impeachment process and put it into real time. All 3 will then testify in open court. The special prosecutor, is going to testify in open congressional hearings. The guy who's I just printed out the 400 pages, by the way, of this prosecutorial report against Biden. And I got to tell you, it's 1 billion times more damning than what the mainstream media came out and originally said on Thursday and made it go away by Saturday. This report has so many egregious things that Biden did that I could barely get through the report. It's 400 pages long. I'll have more information on it by next Friday, but I just started getting into it. I printed it out last night. So there is stuff in there, for instance, of Biden saying, or his aides saying, that, of course, he didn't move his own boxes, and the staff did it. There's photos of him moving his own boxes. I mean, there's 1 million odd things in there that they didn't mention.
Shocking.
Speaking
of crime family, somebody emailed me this, and I thought it was pretty funny. They had a custom cup made that you might like.
What does that say?
Come on, Bobby.
Oh, that's cute. That's cute.
I just thought that was classic.
That's cute.
Good
well,
shot.
that being said, about the Fani Willis thing, I despite her incredibly egregious testimony yesterday, I do not believe she will be removed. I don't think it's going to make a dent in the case at all.
No, we were talking to the lawyers. I was talking to the lawyers about that, and they were saying that it's such a narrow window of whether she can be removed or not removed. But I mean, my hope is that, okay, fine, she's not removed. It still destroys the credibility of the case in a lot of ways. Screws a lot of things up, and potentially she may go to prison anyway, because a lot of things have come out. So while she's not removed from the case, she may be wearing silver handcuffs on her own.
Highly doubtful. What is she going to do? Indict herself?
Well, there is one. She screwed up with the IRS.
Who runs the IRS? Mel Torme? It's run by Biden.
Oh, okay, but if Trump wins,
oh no, if Trump wins, all bets are off for everybody. I mean,
exactly.
I'm just saying. You can't remove her because her second in command is going to have to report to her in general. She's going to be in the office. What are you going to do? Remove her from the DA's job? No, the same thing happened in Chicago. Remember with the whatchamacallit, the Jussie Smollett case.
Sure, but they did get it up on the state level, though. The problem with Georgia is that you have Brian Kemp, who is anti-Trump, and that doesn't help. If this were, say, Florida, then she'd probably be in trouble, because odds are DeSantis would take her out. I mean, he's not reliable in a lot of ways, but in that one, he probably would, or another governor.
Yeah,
I don't know.
There was quite some testimony. I mean, when your father's resume is, I was on the International Criminal Court, and then I served in South Africa, and I was a Black Panther. I mean, how racist is his daughter? Being raised in that household, imagine what his daughter heard.
Oh yeah, when you saw his testimony too, when he's like, "I'm not trying to say anything racist, but it's a black thing."
Everything's a black thing. The cash was a black thing. The fact that she needs $200 in her pocket in case the black man bolts is a black thing. I mean, there were so many black things. I started to keep a record of them, and I have a big chart on my wall now of the testimony that were black things. I didn't know there were so many black things.
There's a guy online, Dom, the meme breaker or whatever. It's like a black Twitter handle or whatever. It's like Dom Lucre, and he was like, "It's not a black thing; it's a hoe thing."
Oh,
I thought that was pretty funny.
That's interesting. I mean, she had so many crazy things to say in that testimony, and she was so combative. I mean, the judge, as other people pointed out, was so lenient and
well, he's
lax.
protecting her.
Well, that's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Oh no, I mean that's multiple people have said that he was protecting her. And keep in mind, I did not know this, and it's scary to consider. She was formerly a judge herself,
Very
and
strange.
so was Wade. So think
It's so
about the
bizarre.
quality. Think of the quality on the bench, and now
Dude,
it's like
and so at one point she completely forgot the English language and was just talking Ebonics. I mean, I don't know if anybody caught that. Went down to the store and gets us stuff. I'm going, whoa, what the hell happened here? She completely lost track of American English grammar at one point in the testimony. How does this woman become a judge?
yeah, let alone a DA. But what I'm
Well,
saying
the
is that
DA, you have to get elected. I don't know if the judges are elected there or what the deal
I
is.
think they are. I think a lot of them are. But the key thing is that she was a judge prior. So is Wade, and I'm thinking, this judge who used to work for her may be planning to be a DA himself. And again, it's incestuous, protecting the family. Hell, even the lawyer who was up, the one you were saying was really quiet, she is the local attorney. And she campaigned for Nathan Wade a few years ago. So even her, she's tied in. And that might be also why she was soft pedaling us so hard, because that's her neighborhood, so to speak. And she's at risk too.
Well, I people keep saying, what do you want to do about this? I mean, other than impeaching judges, I think one of the things that has to be done is regulating state bars. You can't, you have to begin somewhere, and you have to start going after the state bar associations and making sure that they cannot be punitive against Republican lawyers, that they can't be punitive against conservative lawyers, that they have to have membership restrictions upon them. It's got to start somewhere. We got to go back before the judges. We have to go back to the legal schools. But what's the next step once you get out of the legal school is the bar associations. And that's where a lot of the damage is being done. You see people being disbarred, people like Dershowitz. The punitive thing starts with the bar associations. Those have to be regulated. That's one of my pet peeves that coming into the future is regulation of American bar associations across the country.
Well, that gets back to the whole Barnes bit about licensure, because that's essentially what you're talking about.
Well, it's a little bit more than that, because losing your license as a plumber is not the same as being disbarred as an attorney and being put in jail and cited for your crimes against humanity as a lawyer. It's one thing to be a plumber without a license. It's another thing to try to get into the DC Bar Association and find a lawyer to represent you if you're a January 6th defendant, where there is no lawyer to represent you. And you'd have to be a member of that bar, Eric, right? To go into DC to be an attorney to represent one of these guys. There are people who have multiple jurisdictions that you can represent different people in different states.
Right. There's 50 bars plus the Supreme Court. You swear in front of that if you're on a federal. There's a lot of different bars. Ironically, somebody could be disbarred in New York and still have a license or be barred in Vermont. Some states have I forget what they call it, but they accept each other's bar. Like Nate moved to Texas and they accepted his New York bar to be in
I just want to
Texas
move
bar.
on to the drag queen of the year, who was awarded by National Geographic just the other day. I don't know if you saw this. It was breaking news. It was a long debate inside National Geographic as to who would be the drag queen of the year. Oddly enough, I didn't know this. National Geographic is owned by Walt Disney. And this drag queen was the one who last summer, I think you and I mentioned her because she is Patagonia, Eric, the outdoors drag queen of the year for camping. And that's why National Geographic gave her Traveler of the Year award. Patagonia I can't even make this up. Patagonia has hooked up with cellist Yo-Yo Ma, not to be confused with cellist Yo-Yo Pa, and the indigenous trans musician Quinn Christopherson, not to be confused with Chris Christopherson, for the climate change anthem called Won't Give Up as part of her award. That was what put her over the top. And Patagonia, in an interview with NPR talked about the potential for the song being sung at climate rallies, because once you're camping outdoors, they also we remember she had that commercial that was running. Oh, here it is. Here's the commercial. This is her. This is her, like with the National Parks Association or something.
The North Face.
The North Face. Okay,
brand.
for North. Yeah, that's why she got the name Patagonia.
Hi, it's me, Patagonia, a real-life homosexual. And today I'm here with the North Face. We are here to invite you to come out in nature with us. Wow, this is nice. We like to call this little tour the Summer of Pride. This tour has everything. Hiking, community, art, lesbians making art. Last year, we gay sashayed across the nation and celebrated Pride across the nation with hundreds of you across the nation. This year, we're back again with 2 new stops. Atlanta, GA. Why? Because you're there. In Salt Lake City, we're coming for you.
Can we go?
Of course. This year, all these fabulous speakers will be coming from inside this TV to a nature near you. So come outside and celebrate the beautiful LGHGTV community.
And by the way, HGTV community. So do we have home and garden television as well as the North Face, folks? Pay attention to the sponsors here, folks. Pay attention. Who she represent?
I mean, now you think to yourself, like, okay, so they want trannies to go camping. I've never seen that happen, but anything could happen. I very rarely see a black person camping. But nevertheless, camping has been a white thing for a long time because they like the outdoors and they like hunting and fishing and guns or whatever they have.
Well, they like Bud Light too.
They like Bud Light.
So there's again, it's another invasion of sorts.
Right. So her group issued a statement. They're the Outdoorist Oath is the name of her group. The Outdoorist Oath is a nonprofit action-based commitment for planet inclusion and adventure. Right. Okay. So what do you think? They would issue an oath about fish, about birds, about camping, about national parks, about wildlife? It's outdoors, right? Okay. Confronting our white supremacy, Eric, will never be easy, but it is a necessary step in creating more inclusive and equitable outdoors. So we wanted to provide a short introduction into some of the concepts we will be likely using and discussing during the session. Okay. That's kind of interesting. All they're obsessing about is the white race. The whole manifesto is about white supremacy, the white race. Who knows what the white race is doing out there? But here's the best part of the thing. Quote, the concept of race was created through pseudoscience, Eric, to justify the displacement and exploitation of the peoples globally. Today, we know that race isn't real in biological terms, but it is very real in terms of cultural and social terms. So on one hand, they're obsessed about the white race. On the other hand, they're denying the existence of race. This thing killed me reading this thing. It was really great. And then they threw in an extra bonus just now. This is recently, past couple of weeks. They issued a statement in support of Palestine and the destruction of Israel. Of Israel.
Of course they did. But you know what, Mark? It's good that they're adventurous, and when they're not outdoors, in the wild, in the woods, they could always be surfing on a subway.
I saw this thing. I watched this video. Keep in mind, this is for New Yorkers who know this. And I'm talking to my friends in New York. This is the number 7 train. The number 7 train goes to Shea Stadium. This is how you get to the Met game. You take it at a Grand Central, or you want to take the number 7, and it goes directly to Shea. Flushing, Queens, and that's the end of the line. So these people are on top, and you can't make this up. There's 2 guys on top of the train having anal sex, while another guy is on the right of that picture. These are people on the ground or filming this, having nothing to do with the events. There are people on the train. You see that guy on the right? He's filming it. This is kind of like the guy who was in the Senate having anal sex, who wasn't arrested, who was the aide to the United States senator. There were no possible charges against him. He was making an anal gay porno movie in the Senate. This, I think, is another extension of that movement. I'm not saying it's the same people, But these two guys on a moving subway train in Flushing, Queens, are having anal and oral sex. They then turn around and do it the other way. And there's a couple of other guys on top filming it from both sides. So there's actually 4 people involved in this, I guess, production on the roof of a moving train. I've never seen anybody on the roof of a moving train in my life, other than in Mission Impossible with Tom Cruise recently, which is an incredible movie, the new one. There's a lot of stuff on moving trains. Maybe this is the gay Mission Impossible. You know, sometimes they come up with porno names for film, whatever. But holy crap. And, the New York City Metro came out and simply said, this is dangerous to ride on the roofs of trains. No mention of what the hell they're doing, because nobody knows what to say about what they're doing. It's so outlandishly, egregiously insane.
Mom, what's that? What are they doing, Dad? I mean, ugh. I had to point that out. We can't go deep into it, but then
we may get demonetized if we go deep into it. God forbid.
It can go even worse than demonetization. Trust me. But then let's circle back again. You were talking about race, right? And how race is just a construct, but it's really important here. But it's just a construct. So which is it, Rachel Dolezal? Because remember,
again, I don't know.
They cannot help that.
Yeah.
If a white individual claims to be black, that is completely unacceptable.
Okay, I think I'm getting a handle on this. Because the woman who got fired at the LA Times, who was a Latina, came up with the Larry Elder smear that when he was running for governor, that Larry Elder was the blackface of white supremacy. There has been further explanations that I dug down that it's not about the color of your skin, it's about your ideology. So they are explaining it a little further, that it's not about your actual race, it's your politics, just to sum it up.
Except her politics lined up because she was the head of the chapter of the NAACP. So she quite literally was in the correct politics. But you see, she still couldn't go the whole way. And then you have, Sean King? Is the
John
other
King
one
out of New York? Yeah, he's another one. But I mean, how she got a job, which they're not even addressing, how she got a job teaching elementary school children is the main point. That even that's not enough for her. She has to join OnlyFans and put out porno films on OnlyFans, porno appearances. But how did she get a job at an elementary school? Did she have that on her resume, that I used to be the head of?
She changed her name.
Oh, not again, did she?
Yeah. She changed her name to Nick. Okay, I don't know how you say it. NKECHI Diallo, Diallo, which is
Diallo
apparently
was
an African. I guess it's like an African phrase.
Well, Diallo was the guy who got shot 89 times by the New York City police in a doorway up in Harlem. That's why she chose that name, I presume. But that being said, these people have more lives than a cat. I mean, how does this woman keep becoming another media figure? I mean, her own parents denounced her. Her own sister denounced her. It was kind of like the woman who was substituting for Marlon Brando at the Oscars, the Indian, whose family denounced her, saying she wasn't Native American. It's the same thing as Pocahontas.
She was way ahead of her time, though.
She was the original. She was the original. Yeah, you got to give her credit. And not only that, her entire career was about being a Native American and going to festivities and awards and everything else. She never buckled to the day she died.
I agree. She even beat Elizabeth Warren.
Way ahead of her time. Way ahead of her time.
A trailblazer, for sure. Oh, God. Okay, so let's switch to a case that we have to acknowledge because next Wednesday at a trial, and I'm not sure what we're going to do about this one, but Hannah Gutierrez goes on trial next Wednesday. Jury selection is Thursday.
All right.
So first day of the trial will be Friday.
Is it going to be televised, Eric?
I'm hearing that it will be streamed. I don't know if we're going to stream this live. They go long, but
well, we could dip in, can't we?
We will need to coordinate something between us and the lawyers. I don't know. Did you watch the hearing on Wednesday? I did. she was going for 3 things. She lost on 2 of them and won on the first one. The first one was the prosecution, Carrie Morrissey, wanted to exclude the OSHA report because, the OSHA findings of everything on the set, and the defense were calling the OSHA inspectors to the trial. She was trying to get all of that excluded, and that was unsuccessful. The judge ruled that the OSHA can come in. But then she also, now this is where things get really weird. She wanted to sever the charge for tampering with evidence. And I learned something that I did not know. I thought the tampering of evidence, and specifically it was cocaine. It was asking somebody, not her to hide cocaine, but somebody to hide cocaine for her. And I thought it was on the set. It was not on the set. It was in her hotel room.
Oh my God, what a stretch.
So she apparently, and I believe it was the hotel clerk or somebody who worked at the hotel, she handed it off after she was interviewed in the police station, which you and I covered her interview in the police station. So she went back to the hotel, handed off the cocaine, and I disagree with this company coming in because Carrie Morrissey is trying to claim that she was in the room high and playing with ammunition. My argument is they did not prove that she was high on the set. There's no blood work, no piss work. If anything,
there's no drug test.
Right. We saw her in the police station itself the same day.
She was totally sane.
She may or may not. She could have been blitzed for all I know.
I don't know. There's nothing to compare it to. Yeah, there's nothing to compare.
They have no proof.
Yeah.
And they don't have any tie to her doing that and being on the set. Then Carrie Morrissey gave this bullshit stretch analogy, in my opinion, saying that, no, it's tampering evidence the same as somebody who commits an armed robbery throwing away a gun. I'm like, weird. There's no cocaine on the set. There's no proof she was doing cocaine on the set. No proof that it was affecting the job whatsoever.
The only way that would make sense is if somebody OD'd on cocaine as the crime, and then you threw away the cocaine as the crime.
Well, yeah, that even then, yes.
But what does cocaine have to do with this case?
Right. If it was on the set again, like, right, and she was really, really high and stoned or whatever, and then she gave it to somebody else to cover her tracks, then I can understand that's tampering with evidence. This doesn't feel that way, but Carrie Morrissey prevailed. It's going to come in as, and this is the problem with this. It's a propensity charge. So what they're trying to say is that she's so sloppy, so irresponsible, that she's always hungover, drunk, because they had texts about her being hungover, but they weren't of that day. And then there's cocaine. So they're going to say, she's a complete mess and wreck and blah, 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 blah. That is technically supposed to be illegal. I'm shocked it comes in. That may come up on appeal. I have a feeling.
Well, being hungover or drunk in this particular case, where there is scientific evidence, like a policeman gives you a breathalyzer, everything else in this case is hearsay, Eric. Saying you were hungover or drunk, it's hearsay.
Right, because they don't have it that day. And that's my issue.
No, but I'm saying they don't have anything that day. They don't even have a blood test. Like you're mentioning, what I'm saying is being drunk is a legal thing.
Yes.
Right. Anything else is hearsay.
Yes.
It's inadmissible.
I agree, but it got in. It's getting in. And that was very weird. Then the last item was they were trying to get Seth Kinney removed as a witness. And now I understand. Remember, we went back and forth and you were talking about Seth Kinney having to delete texts and things like that.
Right.
Okay. What it was, and I didn't get it. He wasn't told to delete his own texts or anything. Jason Bowles signed a waiver saying that the state could pull all the information off of Hannah's phone. Mm-hmm. They then
Jason Bowles, the attorney for Hannah Goodyear.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Hannah's attorney pulled all that information off and they put it on a server. The state shared that information without filtering attorney-client communications between Hannah and Jason Bowles.
Wow.
And they gave it to Seth Kinney's
of course. Team. Why not?
And so therefore their argument was that Seth Kinney, who is the primary witness against Hannah Gutierrez, Jason Bowles named him explicitly as the prime witness against her, had all communications for 12 days.
Oh
So
my God.
those were the delete.
That's
those were
enough to
the
dismiss
deletes.
the case right there.
Technically not, because Jason Bowles signed the waiver allowing them to take it.
Well, he didn't sign the
So-
waiver to give it to the prime witness, though.
The point is, he let it go, and the judge
It
it
sounds
stayed
like
in.
it sounds like a mistrial to me. That sounds like a mistrial. I don't
So-
know how you give it to the prime witness, all the text messages, and then say, you can't put that genie back in the bottle, Eric.
Right. Well, I'm telling you that he did not get anything.
Now, when will Alec Baldwin appear in stripes or in manacles, in your humble opinion?
I don't know that he will.
Okay. When will there be a reenactment of the actual events in the courtroom?
I don't know.
These are rhetorical questions. I know you don't know. I'm just putting it out there. Because I'd like to see. Remember, they did have the animation, Eric. Remember the animation of the shooting?
Right.
That was created by Baldwin's lawyers, if you recall. And that animation must have cost a couple of $100,000 to make. That was like right out of a professional Disney animation, the one they originally made showing their version of the discharge of the weapon.
Right.
Back in the day. So I don't know how much the prosecution is going to A, reenact, B, use footage that you and I have discussed, B-roll footage or whatever footage they got, or use the actual footage from the events and have it narrated, or have reenactments like I mentioned. They're going to have to do some demonstration to the jury that I think is going to be theatrical. And that's of interest. That's of interest.
Yeah, I'm not even sure. I don't know if Baldwin's going to serve time or not. I mean, the trial, I think the odds are pretty good that he can flip a juror or two and get a hung jury. I just don't see it. It's so confusing. Well, the other issue. We did talk about this earlier today. I was wondering why Carrie Morrissey did offer a deal to Hannah, but she only wants one thing,
Right.
and that she wants the source of the live ammunition.
Right. But that's an admission of guilt. Like Bowles said that that would be admitting.
Of course, but that is what a deal is. A deal is an admission of guilt for a lighter sentence. I mean, so if
Right, but it's usually the lowest level of admission of guilt of a lighter sentence, right?
she's looking at 18 months, Mark, not 20 years.
Right, but by doing that, you could be looking at a much longer amount of time, in my humble opinion.
How's she going to get more time when the maximum amount of time is 18 months?
That I don't know, but I wouldn't trust this prosecutor, and you're well aware of this. As far as I would see her, I wouldn't trust a deal from this prosecutor. Not all deals are equal, as we've seen in the Hunter Biden case. Down in the South, where he went down there with a deal in place and left with no deal. So, I mean, deals aren't what they used to be.
That could be. My theory is, though, that I figured out why she might not be willing to do it, even if it did get the time down or anything else. And the source of the rounds could be Thel. Could be Dad.
We originally said that anyway. That was our original idea going back in the day. But all right. Well, what do you have? What else do you have for us today? That's a good one. That was good.
You think so?
No, yeah, that was a good one.
I mean, well, yeah, we got to figure out, how we're going to do that. We need to get some super chats going at some point.
Go ahead. Do what you got to do. I want to talk about Mattis Yahoo, who I love, who's out of Brooklyn, New York. He's a reggae rapper. He's been around since 2005. He's one of my favorite rappers. I remember seeing him at the Greek a number of years ago up the street here. And Mattis Yahoo has had to cancel his Tucson, Arizona, Eric, at the Rialto Theater. Here's a headline out of the Daily Mail breaking this morning. Because the staff has refused to come to work because of the Jewishness of Mattis Yahoo out of Brooklyn, New York. His real name is Robert Miller, I think. There he is there. I thought it was weird that this guy can't do his tour because the staff refuses to come to work. If the staff refused to come to work because it was a black artist, how long do you think this would continue, Eric?
I don't know. It's a good question. And I'm not surprised about Tucson. When I was teaching at U of A Extended U, every week there was a Palestinian march that I drove by right there looking out the window.
Well, let's just
at the university.
substitute Klan March. Let's put that in there and say it's a black rapper and we don't want him in here. And the people who work at the Rialto Theater have refused to come to work for a black artist. Because that's what it sounds like to me. When I hear Jewish artists and I hear refusing to come to work, it sounds like black artists to me because they're both minorities. They're both,
You're right, or they could have been misgendered. That's also verboten.
Right, but
now.
I mean that doesn't have any historical resonance. I mean, these two, blacks and Jews, go back together a long way together, and now one is being singled out, almost like the Nuremberg laws that are being enforced ad hoc by certain venues.
The problem is with this, and I can already see it. Like, obviously, it's wrong. It's very clearly wrong. We know what's going on, but what are you going to do about it? Because it's actually employees.
Well, that's what happened in Berlin in 1934. I mean,
no, I understand, but I'm saying we're talking about employees, and they're
again
not showing up to
substitute a black
but
artist.
Even then, I don't know that they could do anything about it, even if it was a black artist.
We're not coming to work because he's a black artist.
So if they fire them, that's about the best that could happen. Is that the place would fire them?
What would they do if it was a black artist? What would they do?
Probably would fire them.
Well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
No, I agree, and I would hope they would do that. But legally speaking, I don't know. They didn't, you don't know.
It's not discrimination.
If
they're not coming to work because the artist is
so
a Jew.
What are you going to do? Are you going to hold a gun to the?
Absolutely.
No. Are you going to make the baker?
No. All I'm saying is, if you do not show up at work by Thursday night, I wouldn't even mention the artist. If you do not show up at work Thursday night at 8:00, you're fired. That's it.
Right. So the employer, we would hope, would do the right thing. So, but I don't know if they don't.
The employer is the one who's legally responsible for the violation of the civil rights of Matisyahu. Not each individual usher.
I understand, but I'm thinking that the employer, the artist probably has better odds going after the contractual agreement that they had between that they did not fulfill the contractual obligation of being able to perform the concert. I feel
that's
like
a separate civil suit. What I'm talking about is a civil rights violation, which would normally be handled by the Arizona State Civil Rights Board. They're the ones who were created to deal with this thing. The same thing in New Mexico. New Mexico was a theater in New Mexico that did the same thing. But they do have civil rights boards, as we learned in New Mexico, and they do have them in Arizona, Eric. Besides the federal one.
I don't know enough about the line. I'm not able to figure out in my head how they could necessarily do it. Would you go after the employer and say that the employer did a civil rights violation? I don't know. What's the actual?
Just substitute Beyonce. They will not come to work because of Beyonce. Because she's
okay.
Where do you start?
I'll take either one. I don't know what you can do about it. I really don't in that one, other than boycott the establishment.
Well, that's just a separate issue. I'm talking about there's three levels here. There's boycotting, there's state civil rights, and there's federal civil rights.
But this is a private business. It's not a state business. It's not a school.
No. But it's racial and ethnic discrimination. Those are on the books as laws. It is a legal violation.
But whether people show up or they do it, I mean, it's really a tricky one. And it's the same reason that the baker prevailed, that they're not forced to bake a cake. They're not forced to serve certain people. It's not a public institution. So again, I'm not an expert and I'm not a lawyer on it. I just have a feeling that it's very difficult to cover it. And I do agree it's discrimination. I do agree with all of that.
There's laws against discrimination, like about racial and ethnic discrimination and religious discrimination.
I understand that, but
I don't know what that has to do with baking a cake shaped like a penis.
Well, baking a cake that a gay wedding cake. It's a pretty famous case where they go to.
No. I know the case. I just don't see any connection to it.
Well, it's the same.
Banning Jews from school is not the same as refusing a cake.
Well, okay, but banning Jews from school, now we've got something because you're actually preventing them to go to a public institution.
These are public buildings. And the Rialto Theater in Tucson has laws on the city of Tucson has discrimination laws on the books.
Okay, but is it a?
I mean, blacks couldn't go to theaters that were white owned. The reason for the civil rights movement was to allow blacks to go to theaters and to restaurants. Those were privately owned businesses. Those are good for the goose is good for the gander. Black substitute Jews, it's the same law.
Well, I mean, all the lawyers in the comments are going to cite all the laws and tell me exactly where I'm wrong. And great, please do. That's why I said I am not a lawyer, but I'm not sure that they can do anything about it. I know we have at least one lawyer in the chat. Somebody else is claiming a bit. Then we have MLS, who I have on quite often. I don't know. I don't know if they can do anything about it. And we'll see if anything is done about it, because I didn't hear anything about a legal case.
Well, it just happened this morning. So
so let's see. Cool.
Yeah, it just happened. Okay, I just want to talk about this particular story. I don't know if you got to see this. There's a guy in LA, a city councilman out of Boyle Heights, Kevin DeLeon, who separately was almost indicted himself. But all of the lights are out in Boyle Heights because they have stolen all the copper wiring out of every light in the city of LA. They have now broken into the warehouse in downtown LA to go to the nerve center where they keep all the copper wiring. That was tens of thousands of feet of copper wiring. Verizon has now contacted DeLeon's office in Boyle Heights to tell him that they can no longer provide internet service to the schools and homes in Boyle Heights because the copper wiring has been stripped off the internet cables that come out of the Verizon power center in downtown LA, or whatever they call that, where they keep the Verizon, electricity. And so they have, this is insane. They want to create a copper wire task force because 3,738 streetlights are now destroyed in the city of LA, and you can't see anything at night, and it's leading to more crime, Eric. As you see, it's a domino effect. So although they only got about $15,000 overall for the copper wiring, it's cost the city of LA $20 million in repairs. 6,842 cases of theft is staggering. The thieves only got 11 grand for the cumulatively in the copper wiring, but it'll cost just 2.5 million just to repair the bridge where they stripped the copper wiring off this bridge, which I think is what he's standing on over there. Anyway, the point of the matter is they thought they had a unanimous vote for the first time in a long time of 15 city councilmen voting, but 2 of them, including my city councilwoman, felt that thieves of color would be targeted more if they had this task force. So they voted 13-2 to Enusis Hernandez and Hugo Soto Martinez voted against the motions because of what I just mentioned. And the city itself has gone literally black at night because of no lights due to the stripping of the copper wiring. And a couple of weeks ago, I reported back to you about the selling of bronze in the city. This is separate. This is separate from the bronze. This is the copper wiring.
So we got catalytic converters. We've got bronze. We've got wire. I mean, what was it? I have a relative who's sadly had a drug addict in the family, and he stripped the siding off of the house. And sold that off for.
What DeLeon said is thieves are stripping away the infrastructure of a major American city piece by piece by piece and selling it off. And he's not far off in that explanation.
I'm going to say the same thing I said with the bronze deal, though. Where are they selling it? Why don't you shut those places down? It's a pretty clear answer.
I know.
They're getting money for something, so shut those businesses down. Stand by. I mean, I don't know. It seems ridiculous. You know who's buying it, so stand by. Right when they come in with their carts or however they're getting it there, they go, thank you very much, silver handcuffs, or bust the business after they pay. It just doesn't make any sense. So
Boy, this
I
is a
find the whole
strange
thing
one. This is a
frustrating.
strange one, but not as strange as this one. This is from the California Globe that I love, Katie Grimes's paper out of Sacramento. They have she recorded over 769 athletes back in April in 22 who collapsed from cardiac arrest since the COVID vaccine rollout.
Something, yeah, that we're not going to say with the YouTube, but yeah, since something went down the medication that we don't talk about, but yes.
Okay, so anyway, so 769 athletes collapsed suddenly. The average age was about 23 years old. So she wrote an article. This is really fascinating. All these different people who have had illness from this thing, which is in the thousands, like 89,000 people, not one of them is a member of Congress, a governor, or a state elected official. Yep. And it turns out they were all given a pass. Did you know this?
Of course.
In the state of California, and an executive order by Joe Biden. I did not know this. All these elected politicians, not one of them suffered any of these fates because they were all given although their staffs were made forced to do what they were given a pass not to do, Eric.
Of course.
I didn't know
of course,
this.
But no, it gets even better than that, Mark.
What?
They also were wise enough to invest in the companies that were making particular medicine, they all got, so they not only didn't get anything that could be bad for them, they got only good things for them. Money.
It's just insane.
It's as dark as you can get in a story. And the fact that we can't even talk about it or say the word because that.
Well, we don't need to do that. I mean, Joe Biden exempted members of Congress and the executive branch employees. However, the executive order didn't apply to those who work for Congress or the federal courts, citing White House officials. I didn't know this. I mean, they all got a pass on this mandatory thing, but not their staffs, Eric.
Or the military.
Or the military, yeah.
You know, the people who are out there who are at risk. Dude, it gets sicker and sicker and sicker as it goes. But you know what? Since we're already demonetized, let's get some money in here. A lot of people have given some super chats.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate
acknowledge them.
We get demonetized the second I get out of bed, apparently.
I think so. Pop Smoke JLP. Love the programs. Would you consider doing an episode on the life of Captain John Birch and the society bearing his name?
People are going to get angry about it because the organization is going to go off the rails. So I never saw an upside in doing it.
All right. Ike Broflovsky. Tucker's grocery store visit reminds me of Yeltsin's visit. Things are really changing. Yeah, it is almost the opposite, isn't it?
Well, Tom Tillerson came out and said he was a useful idiot, thinking the Soviet Union was still in existence, quoting the phrase useful idiot, when Tucker is in the middle of a thoroughly stocked supermarket in Moscow. Tom Tillerson believes that this is a Potemkin Village supermarket. From what I gather, that this is a phony Potemkin supermarket, according to this maniac. Where's Tom Tillerson from? Like Kansas or something? Where's
I'm
this?
not sure. I think he's a Republican too.
No, I know he's a Republican. I'm just wondering what state is this guy deceiving his voters into? I think there might be a recall underway for Tom Tillerson, but nevertheless, he goes after Tucker for merely showing that the
North Carolina,
of course, the boycott against the Russian Federation did not work. That they have more food in their stores than we do at the height of a war. So it's Tucker's fault that they have all that stuff in the store. It's his fault.
Well, and by the way, the guy's making this moronic statement. Now, if that was the case, I have a feeling we would see 50 headlines showing all the other grocery stores that weren't fake immediately rolling out, from the people will be uploading on Twitter. Russians will be going, oh no, it's a complete lie. Here, look. I haven't seen a single thing out there proving it other than just saying he's a useful idiot. So that's really not
right. No, he wasn't saying the store was fake. I mean, I'm just exaggerating for effect. I don't know what he was saying. He just said Tucker was a useful idiot for doing this. I don't know what he even meant by it. It made no sense. Tucker was in a real store filming.
Yeah. I don't know. Basil coming in hot. Thank you very much. Test case.
You know what? He's right. I
Clippers
forgot
taken from
about
streaming.
that. That's right. Basil is right. They removed the owner of the Clippers for.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I forgot. That was discussed this week on the radio. Actually, here somebody had brought that up. John Phillips, the great WABC radio jock out here, conservative. He brought up that they had audio recordings of him,
His
and a lot of
girlfriend.
it. A lot of it was memory on his part. He had started to get senile at the end, and they took his franchise and they did a lot of damage to him.
Yep. Donald something.
Donald Sterling.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, but he was close to having like sundowners, kind of like somebody in another house.
Well, that's why they were talking about it. It was similar to what is going on right now.
With somebody who's snapping at reporters
late at night.
When he can have a coherent thought, hey, buddy, or whatever.
Wow.
Pasha, yellow. Now, what took them so long?
No, I think it was pretty early in the game. I wonder what the record is for.
I think our record is like 4 minutes or
4 minutes. Wow, it's like with a Jim Ryan of.
Well, we had the wrong opening clip or something. John McMinnon, the great show, guys. Thank you very much. Mary said that we're one of her favorite shows. Thank you.
Well, she's pro demonetization. She's been pro demonetization since she was a girl, and she's helping us out. What is that? A pound sign? What is that thing?
Euro.
A euro. Okay.
I think it's a euro. PD with Canadian $20. The frustrating thing is trying to wake people up to this Marxist takeover without sounding like a complete nut. So many people are too apathetic to give a shit about it.
Well, I started Eric's recommendation to read the Michael Malice book, the White Pill book, Eric. And I'm listening to him reading his own book at hypersonic speed. I think it's not even on a fast speed. I think he's just talking a mile an hour. But yeah, what an education that is in terms of Marxist stuff and Rind and Soviet stuff. Really interesting. Really interesting.
I think he was actually born in Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Very sharp dude. Don't agree with all of his anarchistic things, but
he covers a bunch of stuff that we already covered. So I was really interesting in these assassinations by anarchists of presidents and Emma Goldman. And I started watching Reds last night with Warren Beatty. Some interesting film versions of this.
Yep. Hobnob. Mark, when are you doing a series on our man in Hollywood, Arnon Milchan, including LeCam and the Creightons? Lots of dots put CIA to shame.
Again, I assume this is an anti-Israeli person who wants to go after a Jew named Milchan. I get it. He was an arms dealer. He worked for the Mossad. I get it, bro. I get it.
I get it. I have to confess that.
I get it.
They come in. I don't know, and it's like
I get it, bro. We get it. We get what you're saying, bro. We get it.
All right.
You hate it. You hate Israel. I get it.
Kim Opperman, I was wondering about Governor Brian and Kemp being involved in the Fannie trial because he's corrupt and hates Trump. She is way too confident. Yeah, Barnes has talked about multiple times. He could have pulled her off any time.
Good one, Kim. Good one.
So totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's really dark.
Ennis Fad, did you see the hearing today when Anna crossed through Bradley under the bus? Amazing surprise ending. Vika, maybe it's Viva, almost faded. I didn't see that part.
Who is Bradley? The lawyer is one lawyer.
Oh, I think Bradley. Okay, he's
the lawyer
with Wade's lawyer, I believe.
That I didn't follow that.
By the way, Wade's fellow lawyers, I did see part of it. They were talking about the salary. They were paying them $60 an hour to split 3 ways.
What?
After I'm like, this is like the lowest paid lawyers.
What about the $250 he did for the 24-hour billing? Did you see that testimony? When he kept saying it's on the top of the page, that's the end of the billing cycle. And he just kept burying himself. And the woman kept saying, but it says 24 hours, $250 an hour on this particular date.
Mhm.
And he goes, oh no, that's the whole time period. And she asked him like 6 times. It was really painful.
And I'm sure the judge stepped in. He answered, or whatever. Eventually, Scott Binbo. If you want to make sure your eyes go yellow, Hunley needs to do a body language show on all the witnesses. Hello from Buckeye, Arizona.
Buckeye. I
All
guess
right, thank you.
Netanyahu. Mattis Yahoo will be coming there soon to Buckeye.
Honestly,
I like Buckeye.
we're doing a statement analysis, especially or about body language on Fannie Willis, would be like a 10-hour show. It would just because there's so much there. It'd be like, well, which part do you want to pick? I mean, it'd just be ridiculous.
So demonstrative.
Good question. How big is your bladder?
I haven't moved yet, have I? Still sitting here. Of course, I have a hose underneath the seat into a giant portisane, but that was built in.
The Mark's catheter. Sir Lawrence, what the hell is this? I thought I was watching the Young Turks.
Who was telling me there? Oh, there's some guy who is one of the wealthiest streamers on YouTube, is the nephew of Younger on the Young Turks.
Yeah, Uyghur. Yeah. Hassan is his nephew.
Who is
they call
that?
him Chink's nephew.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a real guy, right?
Yeah, Hassan Abi is
Okay.
the number one Twitch streamer in the world. And
what is his number one reason for being number one?
I have no idea. The guy's an
do I.
idiot.
Okay, yeah.
But there are many idiots. We have a generation of idiots out there. There's good people in the mix, but they didn't send the best and brightest here. But yeah, Cenk is running for president, Mark. He actually thinks they're going to change the 14th Amendment. They're going to change the rules just for him because he's a naturalized citizen.
Turkey or something?
Yeah, he's born in Turkey.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
But by the way, and it's the most obvious thing in the world. You have Anna Kasparian, an Armenian, working on a show called The Young Turks. They don't hide the ball at all. The Young Turks who did the Armenian genocide.
Oh, that's weird. I never thought of that. Who she's the sidekick on there?
Yeah. Oh, and it's like, oh, hey, why not? It'd be like, Mark, why don't you just be a co-star on the Holocaust episode?
Well, I don't think there's a Turkish community here. I know there's a very large Armenian community here, but I don't know where there's a Turk community here.
Yeah, I don't know.
What is the large? They did say. Wait a second. They did say in New York there was a large Turkish community because the mayor was giving building permits to a Turkish.
Yeah, there was some sort of a money laundering charge.
There are more communities in Queens than on any place on the face of the earth. I mean, Brooklyn is still Brooklyn, and Staten Island is completely white and Italian. But Queens has always been 1 billion ethnicities in one borough. So maybe there's a Turkish neighborhood that I don't know about in Queens. Maybe people in New York could tell me about it.
Could be. By the way, you got a Rumble rant in here from Alan, a Walfer, $50 for the Code Yellow Fund.
Maybe we should call it the Code Yellow Fund. That would be great.
Yeah,
that's
definitely
a good name for it. Thanks, Alan.
And then Freddie65 said, thanks for what you do. Crazy times. And it absolutely is crazy times. Back to the super chats. Where's ADL on the case in Tucson? I can't say the name.
Look, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. I mean, this is not a complicated case. This is something they could do and still maintain their other crazy crap.
Well, yeah, I mean, ADL is not doing well anyway. What was it, Greenblatt or whoever? I mean, Joe has nothing good to say about that dude.
Yeah,
it's just pile of garbage. Let's see. That's what the Brits would call a pork pie hat. I think that talking about your hat. I don't think it's a pork pie.
I don't know. It's not a pork pie hat. I don't know why the Brits would call it that. It's kind of a fedora.
Great show per usual. Mark and Eric, or Eric and Mark. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Thank you. Deuce Che question: if the country can still be saved, how do you think it happens?
Well, it's a multiple faceted attempt. I mean, you have to put together an anti-communism commission this is another one of my harebrained schemes of people who are American citizens who were born behind the Iron Curtain. In other words, you have to have a commission of people who are experts in Soviet-style communism who were born there but emigrated here. They seem to be the ones who are yelling the loudest interstitially about the Soviet-style communism of elements of the DNC. So what I'm recommending is that we get private citizens, and it can be politicians, because there are a couple of them out there who are in government who are formerly of the Soviet Union bloc. Michael Malice would be one of them. These are people who, as Malice points out in his book, know the Soviet style of terroristic politics firsthand. And he says one of the problems in the book, he says, is convincing or explaining it to a free person. They don't understand what it's like to live under a terroristic regime, and it's even harder to explain it. So one of my ideas is to have a commission that deals with these problems and analyzes them and puts them under the microscope and makes, issues statements and white papers about them regarding the Marxist thing. The second part would be a bill in state legislatures calling for an equal amount of anti-communist education, 1-to-1 ratio of any Marxist course taught. There has to be a pro-American, pro-democracy historical course taught in a 1-to-1 ratio in higher education across the country. It's another one of my harebrained schemes. I'm sure there's holes in any of these things, but these are broad strokes. There's a number of ways to do it, and I'm not alone at this, but it's a multifaceted thing. It's not one thing. Again, I suggest going after the supermajorities and state legislatures of blue states. This cannot be allowed to continue. If a democracy is going to continue, we have to get rid of this one-party rule within heavily blue states. And I'm sorry, red states, but it's going to have to cut both ways. We cannot have one state rule of any state in the country any longer. This can't continue in the cities, and it can't continue in states. There has to be a remedy legally for this to prevent it from happening. That's another idea.
I think my thought is it's got to be a cultural shift, and I'm going to reach back to Reagan in the 80s, because that was the last time I think we really saw the perception of the country change. And you do need kind of a cultural perception. I do believe in the Breitbart, politics being downstream of culture. And a lot of it is you need to expose these people. A lot of this is in darkness. You mentioned Michael Malice and the others. Part of the confusion is that it's not logical to an American for these things to happen, because we're not wired that way. We've never been that way. Culturally don't understand it. So we miss the cues that these people from Eastern Europe, they know the cues because they saw it happen or they've lived through it. So my thing is that exposure is the most important possible thing. And so find a way to wake up the normies, find a way to get that silent majority to actually see things. For example, the Palestinian stuff. And I said, when grandma and grandpa are taking their grandkids out to go see a Christmas thing and they're getting harassed, they're like, wait a minute, what the hell's going on here? And I think the quickest way to this is somehow to get it out there and get it exposed and name them, shame them, the congressional testimonies, as you've mentioned, things like that. You need mass exposure very quickly so people will be alert for it and on guard for anything that's going on. It's very difficult to just make new laws and rule down and get it to pass through when the whole system that's going to pass the law is corrupt. We need the people to wake up, and we got to find a way to get masses.
Let me add two more ideas. One is a guardian angels, as I said the other day, in every city in the country. Curtis Lewa famously started the guardian angels in New York, and when they came on a subway
anniversary.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's why I was mentioning it. The anniversary of the guardian angels, when they came on a subway train in 1975, every person in that train was glad they came on board that train with their red hats and white and red T-shirts. All they had was chukka sticks and maybe a taser, which I very rarely saw them use because they'd come on board the train in a group of 6 or 8. Every city in the country needs a guardian angels branch. It could be funded through a GoFundMe or whatever the non-political version of that is. Secondly, chiefs of police have to be elected They can't report to mayors any longer.
Like
they
sheriffs.
Can't,
Yeah.
like sheriffs. That's right. Every urban city in the country has to have an elected chief of police. You cannot allow them to have a private army at their beck and call. This has to stop. There's two additional ideas just about urban environment.
Yeah. And by the way, the guardian angels, we don't even necessarily have to have them marching around. There could be another version of it. You have neighborhood watches.
Well, that's what they are. They are a neighborhood watch.
Oh, I know, but
they
have a little more teeth than a neighborhood watch. A lot of neighborhood watches calling the police. But either way, activating people to sit there and look and put it in front of their faces. The internet has helped some. We've got a lot of people here who, I mean, how many times have we seen comments saying, I had no idea this was going on. I had no idea this is going on.
The police will not respond to 911 calls by neighborhood watches here in LA or here in New York. So that's out. That 911 thing has been truncated. So what I'm suggesting is Curtis Sliwa branches in every city in the country. And I'm going to talk about this. I think I'm going on with Jason Rance next week in Seattle on his radio station. I'm going to talk about this for Seattle and LA and possibly other cities around the country. So I'm going to try to spread this out there a little bit.
Yeah, but all of this is great. And that all involves city involvement. And if people can run for politics locally, I mean, run for school boards, run for garbage man, run for whatever. The one thing that the communists do, and Mark, you've seen it, there is no position that is too low for a leftist.
Well, I mean, Putin was talking with Tucker about, why doesn't he publicize his grievances or call up Biden and everything? And he said, what difference is it going to make? You control the media. I can't come close to even making a dent in that, paraphrasing Putin. They control every single institution. They control every media outlet. All of these things are well-intentioned, but the reality of it is the New York Times is not going to report this, and neither is, the mainstream media. So you need to think outside the box here on how to fight back.
Right. And that's where the, neighborhood watches and getting each other and the internet and communicating with each other. At least people are on to the fact that the media is full of shit.
Okay. They were on to that in the Soviet Union. A lot of good it did them for 75 years.
Yeah. Well, there is one difference between us and the Soviet Union, and you better hang on to it. And it's called Second Amendment. But anyway, that's a big factor. Pasha Moyer, how do we correlate the copper wire stuff with the comments that Tucker made in the Moscow Metro grocery store? Do we want this situation somehow?
Wait, I'm confused. What does this have to do? Copper wire and Tucker in the grocery and Metro. Well, their Metro was gorgeous. I mean, maybe that's what he's.
Yeah, it's a nice subway.
It was spotless. It has chandeliers, and that's why Bernie Sanders went there for his honeymoon. Because he commented on the chandeliers in the Moscow Metro. I mean, we have judges, again, to get to the bare roots of this thing. Judges have ruled nationally that with the help of the ACLU and other groups that brought it to their attention, defending them, you cannot touch the stuff of the homeless. That's their private stuff. That's the ruling that's currently under review by the Supreme Court. So we're going to see what happens here with these Supreme Court ruling about the personal stuff of the homeless, quote unquote, because a lot of that includes their own feces is their personal stuff for schizophrenic homeless people.
Well, and that's also a weird one too, because, like the same way, if you drink out of a cup and you throw it away, they can take your DNA off of it because it's considered disposed of. So if a homeless person leaves garbage and walks away from it, is it actually possessions or is it disposed? Because it's not on property. It's not on their property.
The squatter buster that I was referring to before, one of the ways he has success is to trick them to get out of the house and then have a lease in place in his own name, but to go to the police to be there when he takes back control of the property. So he has figured out a way to stop the Marxists from seizing these homes. So he kind of outsmarted them, but this is only one guy.
But that's like your trick about going there when they leave the house, change the locks.
Yeah, no, I said that, but he's doing the same thing basically, but he's got police support and he's got a piece of paper with a lease that is now in his name. He has to get that. In other words, whoever home it is has
Right.
to give him a lease, which is not, you know what I mean? It's a legal
Right.
move, but it's smart. He then has a lease.
So he's the tenant now, and it's his property. Yes,
that's right. That's right.
and then he can turn it back over to the owner.
That's
or
what he's
whatever.
doing. That's what he's doing. And then he's made a career out of this. So I'm going to get in there as soon as I can and start doing this.
I'm saying that you need a lot of ex-military and mercenaries into this type of thing.
Well, he's the head of the Handyman Association. I don't know what it's like, a national lobby for handymen.
Well, there you go. He's good with hammers. Diffuse 56. Everybody click the like button. Yes, please.
Oh, yeah.
do.
I meant to say, I found this bell. I don't know if it is of any use to anyone, but I found this bell. Somehow it's tied to the subscription level of the channel. Is apparently when you click this bell, I don't know why, people begin to subscribe to the channel, oddly enough.
I don't know. Let's try it.
Let's try it. Okay, let's see what happens now. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Oh, look, it got that red thing up there. Got their red thing. So maybe they can subscribe. And, I think YouTube's a bunch of bullies, and I think they pick on smaller channels. This is just my hunch. It's just anecdotal. I think if you had big numbers, they wouldn't pick on us as much, Eric. You know what I mean?
It can be, but I'm going to even say, though, that there's some activist people that I've seen on Twitter and I see in the chat, and I sometimes wonder if there's not a couple of nasty operators that are trying to, report this, do that, say that.
Oh, it's a
lie
political
about
war. It's a political season.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? I mean, it goes with the territory.
I don't know. We just keep fighting. JS, I'm torn. My lazy fat ass is how I met you guys, but I need to get off of it and do stuff. You're both amazing. Thanks so much. We are all blessed.
Well, we're going to be doing stuff in Crime Town, USA, which is Youngstown, Ohio, the former congressional district of the late James Traffic Hunt. Like March 15th, Eric?
Yeah, the weekend of the 15th. So the 16th and the 17th are the dates of the actual event.
So we're going to be there for St. Patty's Day.
We are going to be there for St. Patty's Day. That is the meetup and live show.
Great. That's when I drive around all day looking for discount liquors. As a half Jew, half Irishman, this is my favorite day of the year.
It's going to be a long, long day. But yes, there are links in the description. The live show is going to be amazing. 2 parts. We're working on doing something with local politics, having like an intermission or something, and then doing a second show on Watergate. There's going to be food and fellowship, and it'll be a good time. And there's a lot of people out there. Feel free, please put in the comments on this channel what you thought of our events in Montgomery, Alabama.
And Dallas. I mean,
Dallas was another event, but technically is a little bit different. But Montgomery folks, definitely comment below, and don't take our word for it. Definitely ask around. If you're on locals, ask people, what did you think? Did you like it? How was it? I think we have some amazing people, and a lot of people who were at Montgomery are also going to be in Youngstown.
Well, how far is Montgomery to Youngstown? Is it really far? I mean,
it's up
northern Alabama, or
yeah, it's like
it's not northern Alabama,
middle Alabama,
Alabama, yeah,
through northern Ohio, so bottom of the country to the top of the country.
Oh, yeah.
It's a hike.
Are there trains that go there, or trains, planes, and automobiles are the 3 modes, I guess?
They still are. Yes, I don't think you can get there by boat.
You can't take. Well, you could go up the Mississippi from New Orleans, I think.
Right, but then you have to get off on probably the Ohio River or something. I don't know the rivers. I'm going to get very quickly out of my depth.
Right.
But yes, planes, trains, and automobiles.
The Monongahela River somehow involved. I know that there's 3 rivers around Pittsburgh. If you take one of the 3, you probably get to Youngstown.
Yeah,
but Youngstown's a river town. I mean, that's where they ship the steel down the river. Yeah, right. No, we know that. We know that.
No, but anyway, it literally is right next to. It's 30 miles from Pittsburgh.
Yeah. No, I mean, but I'm saying they in 1929, the year of the Depression, they built the entire Empire State Building in 1 year, and the steel was literally coming out of Pittsburgh, and then was coming up the Hudson, and then up the East River, to 34th Street, rather, up the East River, and to the site of the construction of the Empire State Building.
I know. I don't know if it's the Empire State Building, but there's like some old, pictures of the turn of the century. These people sitting there on lunch on the beams.
Yeah, that's the Empire State Building. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm just like, I can't look at that without being like almost losing my lunch. There's
Well,
no way.
the fact is the actual height of the Depression, they built that building in 1 stinking year. And we can't get a bullet train out of Sacramento in 28 years. I mean, come on.
Or the Big Dig in Boston.
Yeah.
That was like 30 years. And it's ridiculous. Brian T., I was born and raised in Wisconsin. My mom is a huge Packer fan. So I am a Packer fan. How did Mark become a Packer fan? And that's a good question.
Boyd Dowler, Carol Dale, Zeke Bratowski, and of course Bart Starr. I mean, the first Super Bowl I ever saw was in my parents' kitchen, and that's how I got started. Just to give you some background, we were such sports fans in New York that we felt you were a rube if you chose the hometown team, if that makes any sense to anyone. We were so into sports that it would be too. Right.
Okay.
Right.
So you're like almost fantasy football now. Like
yeah, exactly. We didn't choose our hometown teams. That was too easy. Anybody could be a fan of your hometown team. So I ended up with the Packers, and I just gravitated towards the Packers initially right out of the gate, watching Packers play Dallas and stuff like that. We had a guy named John Nyland who was an all-pro guard for the Cowboys who went to my high school and would come back. I was on the high school football team in Amityville, and Nyland had gone there. He became all-pro for the Cowboys, and they would have these famous battles with the Packers that this guy knows about, of course, out of Wisconsin. And we'll be back next year. I mean, Love looks pretty good. I'm excited about Love after as far as we got this year. And, go Packers.
All right. Rustus Android. I heard Dorothy Kilgallen used to steal copper.
I got 2 new books on Ruby this week, thanks to the people who donated money to the JFK Book Fund. Thank you very much. 2 recent books on Ruby. One is written by the guy from the Crime Network. What's his name? Who owns the Law and Crime Network?
Abrams? Dan
Abrams? Dan Abrams wrote a book about the Ruby trial, and I didn't know about it. And thanks to the people from the JFK Book Fund, I was able to get that. And there's another book written by a guy who is the editor of Marvel Comics, who has written a book about Ruby from a Jewish perspective, because he knew the rabbi really well, Ruby's rabbi out of Dallas. So there's those 2 books I just got. The point of the matter is, in both books, Kilgallen is given about this much space in both of those books. And what I took away from, and I just got the book, so thanks again to the Book Fund people. The book that both of them were referring to Melvin Belli. And Melvin Belli was a source of Kilgallen's information as a gossip columnist. And she, in turn, would write glowingly about Melvin Belli as a super attorney for years, because he ended up with famous clients, Eric. So these attorneys always need gossip columnists because they're dealing with high-profile cases like Melvin Belli out of San Francisco. So her source was Melvin Belli, who briefly was Ruby's attorney. And then Judge Brown, who welcomed her into his courtroom, was another star fucker, and he wanted publicity, Judge Brown. So he welcomed her into the courtroom. But in both books, the amount of coverage on Kilgallen is a page or 2 spread out over both books. Is really nothing in either book. So again, my continued search for the great whale of Dorothy Kilgallen information continues, and I've yet to see anything other than the crazy stuff by Mark Shaw, who's been thoroughly discredited by websites that I respect, like Kennedy and King, owned by Jim DiEugenio.
Oh, hold on. I actually was sent a book to forward to you
Mhm.
about Dorothy Kilgallen that we'll see. Maybe that'll change your mind. I have no idea. It's
Always
a sealed
open.
envelope. It's a
Always.
sealed envelope ready to ship to you, or I give it to you when I get there. But yes, it was sent explicitly all about Dorothy Kilgallen.
Oh yeah, I'm
and
sure.
so we'll see. Carl Burkhalter, except that Lincoln destroyed the original Constitution, he followed Marx.
From 1849, he jumped on Marx early, I guess. Lincoln.
He did, he suspended habeas corpus. Lincoln did do something.
Yeah.
But Nelson Joseph,
Astoria,
a lot of
Queens.
Turks
Okay,
in
thank
Astoria.
you.
Okay.
My girlfriend used to live in Astoria, Queens. They used to be Greeks. That's odd because Astoria was traditionally Greek. That's where all the Greek bakeries are. And the Greeks all have homes back on the islands in Greece that they go to in the summer.
All right. Pasha, click the like button. Oops, I liked the click. Very funny.
I get it, Pasha. I see what you're doing. I see. Please talk about the migrant issue. I think we covered that last week, didn't we? Or
yeah, we talked a bit.
I mean, with Gangs of New York, we covered it with Gangs of New York as an episode. Yes. That was the whole point of doing Gangs of New York, was to cover that similarity. I think I'm going to sneeze at some point here.
All right.
You ever have like a sneeze that's waiting to come out?
I hate that. I hate that. Or it's. Well, yeah, we won't get into it. I think we have a salty cracker fan here. Mm-hmm. You think Paul Pelosi is getting hammered again? Yeah,
whatever happened to that guy? Whatever happened to the two guys who assaulted or attempted to assassinate RFK Jr.? Whatever happened to those two guys? Because there was a guy in a Super Bowl commercial who was one of their uncles. The actor we talked about when we were covering the attack on RFK Jr. And now, which we didn't get into, is the FEC investigating the campaign funding of RFK Jr. And the resignations of 12 top campaign workers of RFK Jr. The Super Bowl ad that was paid for $7 million from an anonymous woman to RFK Jr., of which he had to call up his relatives and apologize to.
Which he said it had nothing to do with me, but he pinned the tweet.
He pinned the tweet. The 12 workers resigned. Mediaite ran a great story. It was picked up by the Daily Mail, which I highly recommend because it's got the resignation letters of the campaign workers in there who claim that Amaryllis Fox is running a spring break party cruise as a campaign. And Dale Bigtree, who apparently Dr. Drew knows this guy. That was the craziest name I've ever heard. They're all the top people in the campaign are feeding at the trough, taking down tons of money on a monthly basis. They're going on ski vacations to Switzerland. They're having Zoom conference calls from all over the world. And these lower level campaign workers had enough. They couldn't even get their gas receipts paid for by RFK Jr., so they resigned. And in their resignation letters, they detail what's wrong with the campaign. She immediately wrote a letter saying, "Sorry to see you go. You misinterpreted it." And she wrote a simple email.
ChatGPT. How do
Yeah. It didn't even sound real. But anyway, the campaign seems to be in a lot of trouble, the RFK campaign, because of the ad and the resignations. And I believe, and I have no evidence of this, because the guy knew, the other campaign official knew where the money came from. He said it was from a Democratic woman donor who I know who she is, but I don't want to release her name. $7 million that paid for that Super Bowl ad that could have gone to paying for these gas for these campaign workers. Nevertheless, I think that money came from Amaryllis Fox's stepfather and family. That's where I think it came from. Yeah, that's why they're not revealing the name. Right. Carol Dale. Thank you, number 87. And don't forget Boyd Dowler. And don't forget Max McGee, who caught a Super Bowl touchdown hungover. And one of the great catches of all time on a slant pattern. I know shit that does me absolutely no good. And don't forget Paul Horning and Jim Taylor and a lot of great famous Packers. I could go on and on and on about the Packers. But we're not here for that format. So we're going to.
All right. Fantastic show as always. Thank you very much. And then last super chat. I heard Dorothy Kilgallen was one of the original gangs of New York. Okay, that's my last Kilgallen show.
No, don't stop there. I mean, keep it going. I mean,
Oswald will forgive you.
We need a Kilgallen doll, I think, to really put a cherry on top of that.
I'm sure that Otto, one of our friends and locals, he's probably on the case with the Dorothy Kilgallen doll because he is very, very into talking about that.
Is this guy coming to Youngstown?
I don't believe he is. I think
because he has no legs. They were amputated, or
I don't know. I think he likes to snipe from the dark. I'm not sure.
Where's the guy from? Minnesota or something?
Virginia.
Oh, Virginia. I didn't know that.
I think the Charlottesville area or something. I don't know. Somewhere in Virginia.
Okay.
But yeah, he's fun. He's fun. And we will actually probably be seeing some chats from him as we head over.
Where are we going? To locals now for the
We're heading to locals.
Yep. Post-prison writings and party with the Daniel Ellsberg.
Yes, exactly that. We're heading over to locals right now. Again, folks, it's free to follow us there. You don't have to pay to support us. You can become a locals member, not pay a dime.
Right, they can listen to the Oswald AI series too,
if they are paid supporters. Right, but there's a lot of material for free, so you could check it out, look around, and see the after party.
You know what? I'm going to tell these people what Tuesday is going to be about right now. I'm going to tell people right now before we go over.
Okay.
Because I like these people. I like the ones who watch us. Tuesday's episode, and this is news to Hunley too, is going to be specific about Oswald in Japan.
Oh, Oswald in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's going to be a good one.
Thank you.
All right.
Just Japan. We're just going to focus on Oswald in Japan. I don't want to hear about Okinawa. I don't want to hear about Texas. Just Oswald in Japan on Tuesday. Start Googling, you bitches.
Okay, folks. While you're Googling, we're headed over to locals now. We'll see.
I'm going to take a leak. I'll be right back.